Hello everybody. I just want to make a video about what antisocial personality disorder is about and how it can affect you personally. So the past year I had a breakup that was very painful. And the reason it was painful was because of how quickly the person I was seeing turned from this wonderful person to someone I did not know at all. And the past year was incredibly painful because I also had my own personal goals that I was working towards, and it's very difficult to focus on doing positive things when you have somebody sort of attacking you, attacking your character, and really trying to harm you emotionally and generally penalize you in some way. So I wrote about who this person was on my blog, which is on WordPress, and it's under Unfemininism. And I find that hard to pronounce, but I can write it very easily, but it's Unfemininism. And so the full story can be found there. So I just wanted to sort of elaborate on a few points because I'm often online, and I see a lot of women writing about these relationships that they're having with men that seem really painful. Now, I think regardless as to whether somebody has antisocial personality disorder or not, if there's a person that is making you feel bad about yourself and putting you down, that generally is a good reason to not be in the relationship, and I would hope that you would leave that relationship if that's the case. So antisocial personality disorder, from what I've read and what I've been reading in the past year, is a combination of narcissistic personality disorder, borderline personality disorder, sociopathy, and psychopathy. And I mean, there are probably some other minute personality disorders, but that's the basic gist. So basically, this is a person who lacks empathy, refuses to accept personal responsibility for their actions. They are often callous and antagonistic. They have much disregard for other people. Now, when you hear lack of empathy, it's like, what does that really mean? What it means is they cannot understand your perspective. They cannot listen to you. They cannot understand that you are a separate person and that you have your own feelings and your own needs. And so basically they're like a spoiled child that have never really grown past being sort of that narcissistic child when it's all about them. Refusing to accept responsibility for their actions. So, for example, somebody's driving a car, they, hit somebody with their car and then they run off. That's not really accepting responsibility for your actions. What they would have to do is stop, make sure everyone's okay, wait for police. I mean, that's what happens, at least in Canada, or what you're supposed to do. So there's also another side issue, which is that we live in a very narcissistic society. So yes, people are very self-centered. They often do things without saying sorry. That is true. But for the most part, I think a lot of people do have empathy. People often do things that hurt other people, and they will say, or come back later and say, I'm so sorry, what can I do to make it up to you? And that's quite human. And sadly, I think people who have antisocial personality disorder, or, they can't really do that. They don't have insight into their behavior and how it affects other people. So I'll just refer back to my relationship. basically, I met someone and we had just talked very, very much about, how the relationship would work. And there were agreements, and I call this a social contract, which I also wrote about. So basically, I do this, you do that, and, we've agreed to that implicitly, explicitly. And by making these social contracts, it's a building process of trust. So I say I will do a certain thing by a certain time, I do it, and then you do a certain thing by a certain time. And over time, you develop a healthy, trusting relationship. And that was happening for a long time. Until, the time where I was supposed to actually move in with this person, all of a sudden he started acting callous and antagonistic. And at the time, my heart sank because I had actually been through these kinds of relationships before, which I also write about in my blog. Unfortunately, I'm very introverted. And so basically, there's 3 phases to the antisocial personality disorder type. And the phases are stated by Sam Viknam, who writes about narcissistic personality and all these things. And I learned a lot from his videos, and it was incredibly helpful in my own healing, and also understanding in general of how I've dated these types many times, unfortunately. But this was the most painful, I think, because the person I was seeing was incredibly intelligent and manipulative. So basically the phases go like this. It's idealization, devaluation, and discard. In the idealization phase, they do what's called love bombing, which is giving you tons and tons of attention. And silly me, I thought that, love bombing was sort of romantic, and it was like wooing. And that was very naive of me, and very wrong. Getting a whole bunch of flowers and gifts and trips paid for you, and then saying how great you are and how lovely you are. Like, I think I'm pretty good, but they're over the top in terms of attention. And so once that happens, then you sort of think, oh, this person's okay, they're really nice, they seem to be really into me. And it's sort of done in order to convince you that they are really into you. And so you have the love bombing phase. And then when you are kind of comfortable, they're comfortable, they start to slowly reveal themselves a bit more. So let's say you used to get gifts, they used to call all the time, all of a sudden they're not going to call as regularly. Now that could seem normal. There's like a honeymoon period, and then, and then you get comfortable, and things change, of course, and they evolve. But the devaluation process is different in an ASP, an antisocial personality disorder relationship, because they start to put you down after the idealization phase. So for me, in this past relationship, it was, you have a couple gray hairs, or, other slights and insults. As I wrote in my blog on unfeminism and feminism on WordPress, I sort of went through some of the insults, but, unfortunately, you can sort of josh with people and put them down and stuff, but there's a point where it's painful. And I was in this sort of devaluation process, and I thought, maybe he's just joshing or something, or maybe he's joking, and it seems that everybody expects this of him, including his friends and family, so why should I be any different? But actually it hurts. And in retrospect, I realized that that was the devaluation phase. I didn't sort of consciously accept it at the time because, you know, I had fallen in love with this person who I later found out wasn't actually real. Now, people talk a lot about this person not being real, and I was like, what do they mean, not real? Okay, so now I get it. Basically, the people are lying. He was lying. They tell certain truths, but basically, he did a lot of research on me, and he said he was certain ways that he thought would appeal to me. He said he was an environmentalist, which I discovered was not entirely true. He didn't really live an environmentalist kind of lifestyle. He said he was healthy, and I realized that wasn't true at all. He was developing health problems, and so basically I was unraveling a series of lies, and I think he was also starting to realize that I was picking up on the fact that he was lying. And it's hard because this particular situation was a long-distance relationship. Now, I have had friendships with people online, and they are not ASPD. I've even dated people long distance in my past and remained friends with them. So when I tell people that I really do think this person had antisocial personality disorder, was narcissistic, a real narcissist, I have reasons to actually say that, and they're facts, and yeah. So I just wanted to make this video to sort of state the differences and to maybe clearly explain what dating someone with antisocial personality disorder is like. I wrote all about the discard process, which was very painful, and so I'll brief on it a bit. And basically, I had met his whole family, he met mine, friends, children, and everything. Now here's the thing, when you're dating with children, you want to be very careful with who you date and who you introduce them to, which he was and which I was. We were both quite conservative about that. So when the children started speaking to one another, not regularly, but they were starting to communicate and share gifts, and that meant a lot to me, and I really did like his children a lot. But he was starting to make excuses, for why we couldn't do things together. So the discard phase comes up, and basically we were organizing to move in with one another. And then all of a sudden, I asked him about this move-in process because I needed to organize myself. And he said, "Don't get ahead of yourself." And the way he said it was so mean and callous and shocking. And, I didn't understand. So I wrote, "I think that we should talk about this because I don't really know what you mean." And that was the last time I spoke to him. He never spoke to me again. And he was sending me emails that were just ripping me to shreds. So painful. Couldn't even read them. Not only painful, but completely irrational, hurtful, mean-spirited. So from one perspective, I could say that we were having an argument, and that's what I thought it was at first. But it was not an argument. It was something more, which, I think that for other people who have experienced this, when someone is behaving this irrationally towards you, someone you apparently love, you kind of sit back and you go, I don't understand, why is this person doing this? Like, I actually love them, I care about them, why are they attacking me this way? So basically I tried to respond to the initial whatever was happening, accusations, but then I realized that the more I tried, the worse it got. And I soon learned that, it's basically called the narcissistic vortex. You cannot reason with a person when they're in a narcissistic rage, which I also wrote about in my blog. And everything you do will just provoke them further. So I learned very quickly to just, stop and give up, because I realized that there was nothing I could really do at the time. which was incredibly painful. I had sort of altered a lot of my life. I mean, it wasn't so dramatic. I sort of had in the back of my mind, what if this doesn't work? So I definitely protected myself more than I think the average person does, because it takes me a long time to trust people. Yeah, so that happened, and I was in a lot of pain for the past year, and it took me a lot of studying, and I really am grateful to Sam Bicknam, who claims to be a narcissist, but he's probably helped a lot of people. And I just want to finally make a video to help other people or other women who may have been going through similar things, and to just say, whether you want to say they have a personality disorder or not, if you think of yourself as a generally kind person, if you have healthy relationships, if you have people who care about you, who think you're great, and who love you, regardless of your little flaws, whether you have a couple gray hairs, whether you pronounce things incorrectly, whatever the reasons, if you have that contrast, and then you have someone who thinks you're crap, there's something wrong with them. And it's best to, go no contact and get away from them. And what you'll find, I think what I've found recently is that, it's been a long time, and he never came to apologize. He never said goodbye to my daughter. He never said sorry to my family for misleading us, anybody. And the simple fact that he has no conscience about the emotional harm he's caused, not only me, but my friends, who also had to deal with my own shock, and me being upset, and their own shock of who is this person that's done this to someone they care about. If you have someone like that, it's really telling that they don't come back, and they don't apologize, and they don't try to make amends, because to make amends and to reconcile is human, and that's to have empathy. And if somebody can't do that, you have to know that there's something wrong with them, and it's best to protect yourself and stay away. So that's all I had to say, and I just wanted to make a video of that, and I hope it helps.